28 minutes past the hour. This is the Craig Fahle Show on 101.9 WDET. Thank you very much for being with me on this Monday. And a convention was held a couple of weeks ago in Washington, D.C. for the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. We have a couple of guests with us on the phone right now. We have Dr. Mansoor Qureshi. He's the Michigan chapter president of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. And also on the phone, we have Waseem Syed. He's the national spokesperson for the group. Welcome both of you to the Craig Fahle Show. Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. And first of all, I think it's important that people know a little bit more about the Ahmadiyya community. And I guess, Mr. Syed, we'll get your take on this. Most people have not really heard of this organization, I don't think.
Yes, and I think, first of all, thanks are in order to you for providing us with this opportunity. We are Muslims who believe in the Messiah Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian. He founded this community about 121 years ago in India in 1889. And the main purpose was to try and bring into Islam a rejuvenation of the fundamental ideas that Islam stands for, which you can derive from its very name, and that is the essence of Islam is peace. So he came and he instituted within the Islamic movement, the Islamic community, the notions that no religion that claims to be from God can possibly teach violence in its name. And this is one of the things that we have been struggling for the last 121 years to try and get across, not only to the outside world, but also within the Muslim community itself. And this campaign that we're talking about is really just the latest effort in the same thing that we have been doing for the last 121 years.
It's interesting, Dr. Qureshi, because one of the arguments that we consistently hear in the media these days is that, look, this is a religion that is not promoting peace, especially when we hear about violent actions, terrorist acts, and it seems oftentimes that moderates and those that are for peace are getting squeezed out of the conversation.
Yes, and I think that's what makes it even more important for us to stand up and present these teachings, as Dr. Syed Saab was mentioning, that the Messiah stood for. This ideology that has crept into the Muslim minds is completely baseless and has no foundation in Islam. And that is why we're presenting it to and going door to door to people to tell them what the true picture of Islam is, what the Prophet Muhammad, peace be on him, stood for and presented to the world. So it is absolutely important. And unfortunately, because of the acts of some of these unfortunate, misguided Muslims, the religion is being blamed from, which is, again, pure and teaches peace. So someone had to stand up. It was not enough just to say, okay, I condemn the attacks. I think we had to get up and say and prove that not only do we condemn the attacks, but we care for this, and we have to present the true picture of Islam. And I think we thought, although we are in small in number, but we thought it was important for us to go door to door and tell people about the true message and peaceful picture of Islam.
Well, Mr. Syed, though, this message has not exactly been greeted warmly in all areas of the world. In fact, I know that your organization has been targeted for some attacks.
Yes. The period in which Islam is going through right now and the effort that our community is spearheading is really akin to the Reformation that happened in Christianity in the Middle Ages. And what we are talking about is trying to rejuvenate within the Muslim this concept that, there is one God who created all of us. Craig, you were created by him, and so was I. So this motto that our community has, love for all, hatred for none, is a fundamental concept of Islam. If there's one creator who made all of us, how can he possibly send revelation to someone to say that you should hate another person? And this is a teaching that I think goes against many clerics within the Muslim world who continue to live in the Middle Ages mentally. And the vast majority of Muslims in the United States, they are law-abiding, peace-loving citizens. And the tragedy is that, they say, and many people say, that Islam has been hijacked. But if a loved one of mine was kidnapped, I would not be sitting idly by. And this is really where we are inviting every Muslim in the United States to stand up and start saying these things. It's not enough for us to just, condemn and then stay silent. Our children, our youth, are being affected by the sensational news that comes out of all these places where the extremists go around trying to portray themselves as the defenders of Islam. And we've seen the results of this. There are many young people who have been caught and arrested. Just recently, 5 Americans in Pakistan were sentenced to 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 years, I think, for essentially doing terrorism, and they thought they were doing a service to the faith of Islam. This is not a service to Islam. This is a disservice.
And I think, Greg, as you mentioned, it's an irony that we're the ones who are promoting and trying to promote peace and brotherhood and love and interreligious harmony, but we're the ones who are persecuted in many countries. And as you just mentioned, members of our community just recently, as late as 28th of May, and when they were praying right in the middle of the day, were attacked barbarically and massacred. Almost 19 members of our community died. But in response to that, we are practicing what we preach. We didn't go out on the street and have any violent, opposition or anything like that. We just, being a religious community, prayed to God, and then we are trying our best and increasing the efforts for peace and brotherhood, even in that country and here in America.
I should remind people, my guest right now, Dr. Mansoor Qureshi. He's the local Detroit chapter president of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. And also we have Mr. Waseem Syed, the national spokesperson for the organization. They've just completed their convention. And also the Muslims for Peace campaign is underway. This is a door-to-door event here in the United States. And Mr. Syed, I just want to get your impression as to how it went, first of all. How receptive were people to the message that you were putting out?
Craig, I'm glad you asked this question. We were in New York the day we launched this. The national vice president of our community, Mr. Naseem Mahdi, gave a press conference. He addressed these issues. He said, it's not just a question of going door to door and putting these things on the buses. It's also necessary for Muslims to clarify to everybody in their neighborhoods and all across the United States that Islam teaches us to be law-abiding. This is not some lip service that we are paying to get some political points or to score amongst the American population some kind of an impression. There is a verse in the Quran which teaches us that wherever a Muslim lives, he or she must be law-abiding and follow the dictates or the requirements of the society in which he is living. That's the only way you can live in peace. And right after we did the conference, we went outside and we had CNN television crews, and they were watching and filming our friends and members distributing these flyers. And so far, Craig, it is heartwarming, the reception that we have received not only on that day in Times Square, but also as members go out door to door. Some people came across to us and said, thank God that you are doing this. I remember one person asking, coming back after he saw the flyer, can you give me 10? I want to give these to my people in my own neighborhood. So far, the reaction has been just unbelievable.
And Craig, I would echo that as well. I just distributed a couple of weeks ago in the neighborhood where our mosque is in Rochester Hills, and it was very similar. Whoever opened the door, when sometimes, and it's strange, you knock at the door and someone peeks out of the window, they may not open the door immediately, but whoever opened the door was receptive, and they would look at it and they would smile and say, thank you for distributing this. So I think it's important and heartwarming, as Dr. Syed is saying.
And yes, Dr. Syed, I wanted to correct your title, sir, and I apologize for that. I want to ask you this question, though. Is the United States perhaps the place where you can make a lot of headway in this effort? Because you do have a number of groups that are sort of lumped together in this country where they might not be back, from a number of the countries where they came from originally, so that we sort of look at this as one just, sort of large Muslim community as opposed to a bunch of smaller communities. Is this a place where you can make some headway in terms of getting this community in this country on board with this message?
Let me address that. I've lived in England and Italy and Canada, and now I'm here in the United States. And, of course, I spent the first 11 years of my life in Pakistan. Having spent many, many years in each of these countries, I can say without any fear of contradiction that the people of the United States of America are, I think, the most open-minded people I've come across. Now, this is not, again, as I said, trying to make points with anybody. It really is the case that I found the Americans to give you the benefit of the doubt until you go and you mess up your own reputation, so to speak. So, as I've said in the past, I think it's really important for the Muslims, and I know we have a very big Muslim community in the Detroit, Michigan area, to stand up and start saying and telling people the Islam that we practice. And that, there are some clerics, Craig, which is another issue that I think we should need to touch on, and that is that some clerics seem to think that Muslims living under non-Muslim governments do not have the obligation to obey them. And this is totally false.
What's interesting to me, too, though, is that, other religions in this country, when somebody commits an act in the name of religion, we don't necessarily hold the worst elements of that religion against them. Certainly when it comes to maybe a Christian fundamentalist that commits a terrorist act or something. How do we get to that point with the Islamic community, where automatically the entire religion isn't blamed for the actions of the worst elements of that religion?
I think it's probably the problem is on both sides. I would blame some of those misguided Muslims, as I said, because of their actions. But I think on the other side, there is a lack of understanding, or maybe I shouldn't use the word willing to understand, but I think this is the high time that we do need to understand each other's faiths and their beliefs so that we can have this understanding that not everybody is doing this. And as Dr. Sayyid was saying, in America, we're really enjoying this freedom that we can go out and door to door and tell people about the religion that we believe in. And it's important to note for everyone, not only our American citizens, fellow brothers, but also Muslims, that it is important to tell the American public that we do love our homeland. We do respect, we do obey the rules and laws, and that is our obligation. In fact, in Islam, it is said that you have to love your homeland. It's part of your faith to love your homeland. It's part of your faith to obey the law of the land. So as a Muslim, that is my obligation. That is my religious duty to do so. And that has to come out, and people have to say it openly. And we are doing and saying that to the rest of our American brothers and sisters.
Well, I certainly appreciate both of you for being with me today. Dr. Mansoor Qureshi, the local Detroit chapter president of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, and also Dr. Waseem Syed, the national spokesperson for the same organization. A quick question for you, Dr. Syed. How long does the Muslims for Peace campaign go on? Is this ongoing?
This is a century-old campaign, and it will probably go on for centuries longer. We have a goal, Craig, this year of knocking on 6 million Americans' doors in the United States. A year ago, the same thing started in England, and they have a much bigger goal of reaching 10% of the population in the United Kingdom. Here, we're aiming to reach 3%, 2% every year until we reach every household. And this is something, and Craig, what you just asked previously underlines the importance of this campaign. Until we, as Muslims, start talking about what our responsibilities are as citizens of this great country and stop worrying about what other people are doing to us and, playing the victim card, I think it's, we have to take our own destiny in our own hand. And this is really the essential message that we want to convey to the Muslims. And then keep this campaign going every year, 6 million this year, 6 million next year. Maybe in 10 years we will have reached something like 60 million, and that would be the population of the United Kingdom, I think.
All right.
So we have a long struggle here.
Yeah, well, certainly, as you said, it's been going on for a century. So, but Dr. Qureshi and Dr. Syed, thank you both very much for being with us today.
You're very welcome for inviting us.
Greg, thank you for having us.
And this is the Craig Fahle Show on 101.9 WDET Detroit. We're going to take a quick break.